It all began with a snowstorm, the kind that makes you reconsider living anywhere that isn't tropical. The flakes fell relentlessly, each one a tiny reminder that winter had officially declared war on our little suburban paradise. Normally, I would have shrugged and let the plows handle it, but that year, things were different. That year, I had a secret weapon. I had recently started my own snow removal business, Muj's Marvelous Plowing. Officially, it was just me, a rusting pickup truck, and a plow I bought from Craigslist after a suspiciously enthusiastic guy insisted it worked like new. Unofficially, I was the only plow operator for 20 miles, which would soon become relevant in ways I didn't anticipate. The HOA, Homeowners Association for my neighborhood, which I privately referred to as the bureaucracy of blizzards, had always had a love-hate relationship with me. On paper, I was just a resident like everyone else. In reality, I was the guy who didn't put enough flowers in my front yard, whose recycling bin sometimes ended up in slightly the wrong spot, and, apparently, someone who needed constant supervision. That morning, I got a sternly worded email from the HOA board. Its subject line screamed, "Immediate action required. Parking lot clearing." I clicked it, expecting the usual passive-aggressive complaints about my mailbox. Instead, I was greeted with a demand. All residents must ensure the HOA's communal parking lot is completely cleared of snow within 24 hours. Noncompliance will result in fines. I stared at the email for a long moment. Then I stared at my plow. And then, I did something unprecedented. I laughed. See, the thing is, I wasn't just a resident that year. I was also the only snow plow operator in town. And by town, I mean the sprawling suburban nightmare the HOA presided over like kings in their padded velvet chairs. I suddenly realized I held all the cards, which, if you know HOA politics, is roughly the equivalent of holding a flamethrower at a knitting club. I could have ignored the email, sure, but that wouldn't be funny enough. The truth is, I like a good plot twist, and let's just say I've always enjoyed the subtle thrill of passive resistance amplified with horsepower. I spent the morning driving my plow around the neighborhood, casually pretending to survey damage, while mentally plotting what I would call later the Great HOA Snowcapade. The HOA naturally didn't know what hit them. By the time I had finished breakfast, they had probably convened an emergency board meeting. In their minds, I imagine it went something like this. Did he receive the email? Of course he received it. That's why it's an emergency. Then why hasn't he cleared the lot? Maybe he doesn't own a plow. We can't ask him directly. It's beneath us. Let's send another email. Meanwhile, I polished my plow and sipped a cup of coffee like a man about to sign a very icy treaty. I woke up the next morning to a world coated in white, as if Mother Nature herself had decided our little suburban paradise needed an extreme makeover. The snow lay thick and unbroken in the HOA's parking lot, an expanse of frozen dread that, in the email from the night before, had been politely described as requiring immediate clearing. I grabbed my coffee, laced it generously with caffeine, and walked out to my truck. My plow sat gleaming under the morning light, the metal blade reflecting a subtle promise of chaos. I could almost hear it whisper, "Are you ready, Master?" I was ready. Operation Snowcapade, as I had now officially named it in my head, had 3 stages. I needed a clear mental map of every snowdrift, every icy patch, and every potential trip hazard. This wasn't just about moving snow, it was about making a statement. The HOA would soon witness my handiwork in a way they would never forget. I climbed into my truck, started the engine, and felt the familiar growl of the plow beneath me. It was like strapping a lion to a skateboard and hoping for the best. The first step was reconnaissance. I drove slowly along the perimeter of the lot, noting where the snow had piled unnaturally, likely due to previous, overzealous plowing attempts by, oh well, no one actually. Apparently, in our HOA, the snow simply magically disappears in official reports. I made a mental note. Snow piles along the east edge look suspiciously like someone shoved a small hill there deliberately. Document for future bragging rights. The parking lot wasn't huge, but it was significant enough to look intimidating. I imagined the HOA board members peering from their offices, clutching their warm cups of cocoa, wondering why a single snowstorm had caused such existential panic. Patience, I whispered to myself. All will be revealed in time. I walked the perimeter, kicking at the icy edges, inspecting tire tracks, and occasionally shouting at a passing cardinal for reasons only I understood. By the end of my inspection, I had created a precise mental map of every critical snow obstacle. Next came the fun part. I backed the plow into position like a general maneuvering tanks into formation. I had a plan, of course. Clear the lot in sections, making each pass as dramatic as possible. I started at the far corner, where the snow was deepest. The first push sent a wall of white cascading to the side, revealing the asphalt below in a satisfying, almost artistic stripe. I paused, took a sip of coffee, and admired my work. It wasn't just plowing, it was performance art. Neighbors started to notice. From their windows, they watched the lone figure and his plow tackle the mountain of snow with a combination of precision and reckless abandon. Some waved. Some filmed. A few, I suspect, were calling the HOA to report a maniac in action. The thrill of the operation was in these small, absurd moments. The plow hissed and groaned as I maneuvered through tight spaces. I narrowly avoided smashing a fire hydrant and performed what I later called the plow pirouette, a sharp 180-degree turn that left a perfectly sculpted snowbank behind me. By the time I reached the center of the lot, the stakes were high. I could see the HOA board members gathering across the street, binoculars in hand, their faces pressed against the frosty glass of their clubhouse windows. They didn't know it yet, but I was in control of the narrative. With a grin, I backed the plow up, revved the engine, and charged forward in a theatrical flourish that sent snow flying in every direction. I paused mid-lot, tipped my imaginary hat to the stunned onlookers, and then resumed my work, each movement precise, deliberate, and unnecessarily flamboyant. The lot slowly transformed from a frozen wasteland into a meticulously cleared expanse, with snowbanks neatly piled along the edges. I stood at the center, plow raised, triumphant, as if I had just won an Olympic gold medal for snow artistry. By the time I finished, the HOA board members were in full panic mode.